Alright, welcome to episode 3 on debate. This video will be going over what debating is, how you can debate, and what are the limitations of debate, and just its general characteristics. Alright, so as you can see, this is the Parli Pro Pamphlet 101, which Landon, Colt, and I have been working on. It is not finalized, but at the start of the year it will hopefully be done, and will go out to every member, whether they are in Parli or not. And this kind of just goes over the general idea of what Parli is, how it can be used. But in this video, right, we'll be going over debate. So how can you debate effectively, and how can that translate into your actual success or your scoring in state or your competition, whatever it may be, right? So debate can be summarized into 4 pieces. You have your introduction, point 1, point 2, and conclusion. Now, an introduction might be, I am strongly for or against this motion, as I believe. I'm in strong doubt of the effectiveness of this motion. I'm in favor of this motion, as I believe. So you're stating what you're for, right? What side you're for, how your debate is going to be followed by, and then you generally want to have 2 solid points of debate. So you don't want to have your debate go on forever, but you also don't want it to be too short. Now, members usually have a maximum of 10 minutes to debate per motion, and then 2 times at max. That is the general setting in Robert's Rules of Order, and for many bylaws, that's what it's set as. In this case, you don't want to do that, as in an actual competition, you have 10 minutes. Every member probably wants about 20 to 30 seconds of debate per their debate, right? You don't want to be too long, but you want to get your point across. So, for example, I have some examples here, right? Another point might be, our club simply does not have the funds to allocate $1,000 for ties and would put us severely in debt. Okay, so that is the point 1. We are stating that we don't have the funds for this motion, so that's why we are against it. And then we're adding a translation word of furthermore. And commonly used transitions word would be in addition. Try to avoid that, as it does get repetitive, and if you have muscle memory or you do it subconsciously, you're going to repeatedly do that, and it's going to get old. So I would not suggest that. And then these do kind of follow the same thing. So point 2, many members already have proper ties for the event, which would render their existing ones useless or risk the integrity of each member for their specific event/team. So we are stating a second point, which does relate to why we are against this motion, and then we can end it with a conclusion. That being said, I urge the Assembly to vote down this main motion. And I have summarized these into 3, so I'm just going to read all these. This would be a strong debate. If you were to say this is good. I'm not saying it's perfect, right? I quickly made these examples, but generally this is how you want your debate to flow. Example 1, I'm strongly for, or, yeah, I'll go with against here. All these are against, but, I'm strongly against this motion, as I believe our club simply does not have the funds to allocate $1,000 for ties, and it would put us severely in debt. Furthermore, many members already have proper ties for the event, which would render their existing ones useless or risk the integrity of each member for their specific event or team. That being said, I urge the Assembly to vote down this main motion. Another one being, I'm in strong doubt of the effectiveness of this motion, as not only does our club not have the current infrastructure to develop such an event. Okay, this one's a little odd. Well, yeah, I'll have to change the wording. But additionally, with our current member engagement retention data, hosting this event would be rendered ineffective and not contain the supplies and resources required. Therefore, I urge the Assembly to fail this main motion. And our last one being, I'm in disagreement of this motion, as I believe with the current agenda and schedule our chapter follows, hosting a club spirit night would interfere with our dress rehearsal night. With that said, it would only disrupt our funds further by overlapping with the bake sale fundraiser, interrupting the consistent funding we need for our SBLC conference. Bearing my points, I urge the Assembly to vote down this main motion. Now, there were some words that were reused there quite heavily, so that's not perfect. The best example I can give you is probably the first one here. These two are all right, but what we're focusing on here is the structure rather than the actual content, so do keep that in mind. And when it does come to competitions, whether it be regionals or not regionals, state or nationals, or just practicing, try to debate twice per main motion unless you are explicitly told otherwise, because you can debate max 2 times, usually set by bylaws, whatever it may be, and that's just a general rule of thumb to follow. It allows your points to be stated, and it gives a brief intermission in which members or other members can debate, and then you could follow up. For example, let's say we don't have the funds, right? That's generally the idea of what one of my debate was. Someone else says it would also interfere with this. Then you could say, once again, I'd like to add that I am in strong disagreement of this motion, as previously stated. This would blank. So, reinforcing what other people have said allows for a second debate, going further into your first debate, and just creating uniform and structure, which is also nice. If you want to practice debate, I recommend following this same structure of an introduction, point 1, point 2, and conclusion. And something members do miss is voice projection, right? I'm going to read one without voice projection, and then I'm going to read another with voice projection, so you can see the difference. This is a huge difference, right? It'll definitely play into your scoring, but it's just something members generally miss, so I'll just show you the examples here. I'm strongly against this motion, as I believe that our club simply does not have the funds to allocate $1,000 for ties and will put us severely in debt. Furthermore, many members already have proper ties for the event, which would render their existing ones useless, or risk the integrity of each member for their specific team/event. That being said, I urge the assembly to vote down this main motion. Okay, structure was good, wording was fine, content was okay, but the actual way presented was not good. If I was a member here, right, I'm usually the chair, which means I don't debate, but if I was to debate, this is how I'd say it. I'm strongly against this motion, as I believe that our club simply does not have the funds to allocate $1,000 for ties and would put us severely in debt. Furthermore, many members already have proper ties for the event, which would render their existing ones useless or risk the integrity of each member for their specific event/team. That being said, I urge the assembly to vote down this main motion. So even though it may be a simple difference, just being louder, but also having emphasis on what you're trying to say does go a long way. So I really do suggest that you focus on that. It's not a selling point, right? It does come down to what you're actually saying, but is definitely something to focus on if you already have the structure down. All right, well, that will conclude episode 3 on debating. I hope you enjoyed, and next episode we'll be covering voting. So thank you for watching.